If you've ever disagreed with anyone on social media in the last 10 years, there's a pretty good chance you'll have been called racist. Well, are you? What does it even mean to call someone racist in 2024? Is modern society really a big old bubbling cauldron of hatred and bigotry? Or is it all just a bit of a sham perpetuated by ideologues, useful idiots, and grifters who've constructed an entire industry that profits from the very problem that it claims to be trying to solve? This is the subject of Matt Walsh's latest mockumentary, Am I Racist? A kind of satirical look at the modern obsession with race, the self-appointed experts who make a living out of talking about it, and the average people on the street who seem kind of perplexed by the whole thing. And before anyone gets their panties in a bunch here, this isn't an endorsement of Matt Walsh, the Daily Wire, or any of that stuff. It's a movie review, plain and simple, so put the pitchforks down. For now. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's move forward into a brighter future together, shall we? The basic premise of the movie is that Walsh, bombarded with constant media propaganda about racism in America, decides to go on a little journey of discovery and find out if he, and by extension all of modern society, is really as racist as we're led to believe. This leads him to interviewing everyone from leading figures and academics, all of whom charge very generous fees to sit down and talk with him, all the way down to average people on the street. Being a pretty infamous figure in these circles, he soon discovers that people recognize him pretty quickly, and so he dons the world's least convincing disguise, posing as an anti-racism documentarian in order to get access to people who would never normally engage with him. Other reviewers have described this movie as a kind of conservative version of Borat, and I think that's a pretty accurate description. Most of the interviews and vox pop segments are real conversations with real people, but there's a kind of loose scripted narrative tying it all together, with a couple of comedy skits moving Walsh's character arc forward and poking fun at some high-profile celebrity fuck-ups. And I guess what surprised me about this movie is how much of its comedy actually lands. Lady Ballers was proof that the Daily Wire and humour don't always mesh together very well, but Am I Racist is actually much more effective because it plays up to Walsh's deadpan sense of humour. And credit to the guy, he's able to stay in character even in the most absurd situations, clearly having to improvise and think on his feet at times. Instead of being a flamboyant personality like Sacha Baron Cohen, he's able to come across as more of a blank slate, asking what seem like innocent questions and allowing his interviewees to tie themselves in logical knots. It's a perfect example of giving your opponent just enough rope to hang themselves with, and he does it so easily that it kinda makes you wonder how much thought these people have actually applied to themselves. Like the academic who suggests that Walsh's daughter would be racist for not preferring diverse Disney princesses like Moana, but also racist if she were to dress as that same character for Halloween. Or the rich white women paying tens of thousands of dollars to attend a luxury dinner so that they can complain about how unfair and horrible modern America is. Or the anti-racism author reluctantly guilted into paying $30 in reparations to one of Walsh's black production assistants. And I guess that's the real heart of what this movie is driving at, taking a very unflattering look at people who make a living claiming to provide solutions to problems that are largely manufactured by them, and the reluctance of so many people to question what they say. Like at one point when Walsh starts a petition to repaint the Washington Monument black, and nearly everyone he meets on the street happily signs it, even when you can tell that they don't really agree with it. It's interesting stuff that makes you laugh at the absurdity of it all, but also raises some pretty uncomfortable questions about human behaviour, our vulnerability to peer pressure and mob mentality. Is it a flawless piece of filmmaking? Absolutely not. Some of the interviews drag on longer than they need to, not all of the scripted segments land as well as they could have, and I think it might have been worth acknowledging that despite all the silliness and hypocrisy exposed by this film, actual racism is still very much a thing and shouldn't be downplayed or mocked for the sake of political point scoring. Given the subject matter and the people who made it, this movie was always going to be divisive, and the unfortunate reality is that a huge chunk of the potential audience will just point blank refuse to see it. And that's a real shame because the whole point of art, and especially documentaries like this, is that they're supposed to be provocative and uncomfortable. They're supposed to make people question their assumptions, challenge the narrative, and encourage them to think more critically about how they see the world. And in that respect, I think this movie actually does a pretty good job. No matter what side of the political divide you come from, no matter your opinions on the artist, I think you'll still be able to take something pretty interesting from this movie. And at the end of the day, isn't that the whole point of making it? Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.